I wanted to make a quick video today for a few reasons. One is this came in while I was sick last week and I need to install it in my PC. Two is I also installed another upgrade in my PC I want to show you. But third is to say thank you so much to everybody. I posted that video about my sickness over the past couple weeks, and the support that I saw in the comments and people with Patreon and GitHub sponsors and things has been incredible. Today I'm feeling well enough to hold my camera. That's a pretty big thing. This is the first day I'm back in my office in like a week and a half. But I did want to get this installed in the PC today, and I'll talk through that process and the other upgrade that I made. So first, let me grab my screwdriver. This is not a Linus Tech Tip screwdriver, obviously, but maybe if I can get one of those, we'll get a review going on that. So this is the gaming PC that I built. This is also the same chassis that I built the Raspberry Pi gaming PC inside of. You'll notice there's a pretty big upgrade. If you remember the video where I made this one, this is the Noctua, I forget the exact model number, but when I posted that gaming PC, I posted a tweet that said, basically, the fan in here is really loud and it's not doing a great job. It was the stock cooler fan from AMD. And Noctua reached out and said, hey, we'll send you this fan if you can test it out and see how you like it. And I love it. A quick story on it. Basically, I popped off the old fan, so I had good thermal coverage, but I noticed that when I was running Cinebench or when I was doing certain games and things, the CPU would basically max out and start throttling, and the temperatures were getting up to 85, 86, something like that. I think maybe even a little higher. I have something on the screen for that now. But when I replaced this cooler, it wasn't that hard at all. It came with all the brackets that you need for Intel or AMD, and this is an AMD system. And the clearance was great in this case. It is a pretty darn tall cooler. So if you have a shorter case, you might not have the room for it, but check your measurements before you buy something like this. But this one is actually very slightly louder. It was 1 decibel louder in my testing than the stock cooler, but that 1 decibel of loudness gave me like 20 degrees of headroom. This thing keeps the CPU down so it can run full blast all day with no problems, and I could definitely overclock quite a bit if I wanted to. And anyway, I was really happy with this upgrade. The other thing I'm doing is putting in a 4K. This is a streaming card, but I'm not going to use it for streaming or gaming. Well, maybe I will someday. But what I do a lot of times is I'll plug a server or a Pi or something into my portable recorder. And the problem is that recorder that I have, sometimes when the resolution switches, it cuts out the video for a little bit. And when it cuts out, it causes issues, and I have to clip it together in post-editing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the Pis and things straight into this PC and use OBS to record it, which is a lot more stable. Hopefully this will fit. I might have to pull out my 10 gig card and switch to maybe 2.5 gig networking for now on this PC. It's not critical. So let's yank this box open and get it installed. So it looks like it comes with an HDMI cable. I have a zillion of them. Don't really need it, but just comes with that and the card. I do enjoy when the industrial designers make the card look a little nicer. It's just nice to finish off a build with something that looks pretty instead of just functional. But it does look like this has a by 4 slot, and this guy down here is actually, this is a by 1. I'm gonna have to move my network card down and reduce its bandwidth a bit, and I'll put this guy up in here so I get the full bandwidth so I can get the 4K at 60 frames per second. So here's the 10 gig Ethernet card. We're gonna take it out. I'll just yank it. A fun story about this motherboard, I bought it used, and because of that, this motherboard seems to have a broken 2.5 gig Ethernet port, so I need to have an external card if I'm going to get any network connectivity at all. The board doesn't have Wi-Fi either, so basically you get nothing unless you put in your own Wi-Fi or Ethernet card. So I'm going to put this one down at the bottom, I guess, and plug Ethernet back in. So now I have in the by 4 slot, I have my HD capture card, my 4K capture card, and then I put this guy, the 10 gig card, down in a by 1 or by 2 slot. So it's not going to be getting 10 gigs anymore, but at least it'll get like 2.5 gigs or something. We'll see. All right, and here is the moment of truth. It turned on. That's good. And it looks like the card is blinking red. I hope that's a good thing. Not sure. No clue. But also those fans look really nice with the kind of to accentuate that lighting. The old AMD cooler didn't have any LED lights on it, so I'm not really an RGB guy, but I have RGB parts in the build, so why not make them all unicorny? My kids like it. That's still giving 5.7 gigabits per second, so, you know, not quite the 10 gigs, but it's definitely better than 2.5 gigs. Looks like the card was not recognized automatically. I kind of imagined that would be the case, so I'll download the software and see if that picks it up. Usually when you get an option to select a type of installation, there's actually another option, but I guess complete's the only way to go with AVerMedia Rec Central. It looks like after it detected the card, it started doing some sort of RGB mode, so that's good, I guess. All right, firmware update complete. There's always a Windows update on Windows. I don't understand how that's possible. Yeah, I'm going to be recording, but I won't be using this software, that's for sure. I'm going to try adding the source, so I'll say plus video capture device. Okay. AVerMedia, that's good. So it says no signal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in and turn on this little Raspberry Pi cluster, and I have its HDMI output back here plugged into the card already. So let me grab power here. Let's turn this on. It should be booting up all the Pis. I just saw some green lights inside there, so let's see if we get a signal. There's something. There we go. So I got my Raspberry Pi up here, and now I can screen capture it into this computer. And the best thing about this is when it changes, so it'll just switch to this no signal thing, I guess. But as that changes, it won't break the recording, so I won't have to sit there when I'm editing these things and like manually chop together a bunch of little video files like I do with my other recorder. I don't have my mouse connected to this Pi cluster, but that's one of the cool things that I'll be talking about in my video on it, is how this Pi cluster has an HDMI and USB for the main Pi, so you can manage the entire Pi cluster all using just the Pi cluster. You don't even need another computer to manage it. That'll be pretty cool. I'll be talking about that coming up soon, so make sure you're subscribed for that. Yeah, but the build came together pretty well. It's very quiet. I can actually reduce the volume of those fans if I want a little bit, and probably still not thermally throttle at all. This thing's pretty darn quiet. It's not nearly as quiet as the Mac Studio, but it's quiet enough unless you're actively gaming or actively compiling Linux. But to wrap things up, I'm going to have on the screen here a lot of the people who have supported me on Patreon and GitHub sponsors and sent in donations and things. It's been so helpful. I know on Twitter I was complaining about my insurance. It seems like every time there's a big problem, insurance likes to chime in and say, hey, and we're not covering you for something. That's the pleasure of American healthcare. But thanks especially to everybody. My wife was very happy to see some people notice, like, if you have a chronic illness, you can't get through it without support, and my wife has been a huge rock of support for me. And that means so much. My mom helped me in the hospital this week because, you know, when you have active young kids, you can't just drop that on a dime, and my wife couldn't just come with me to the hospital. So thank you also to my mom for helping me get through this week. I'm on the upswing right now, so far, knock on wood. And hopefully I'll be able to get this video done. If not, you know, many of you have mentioned, don't worry. But I still want to get it out because there's so many exciting projects that I get to see, and I'm privileged to be able to work with companies that make these things. So I just want to bring it to you and continue doing this stuff. It's been an honor to be able to be on YouTube, and I want to continue doing this for as long as I can. So thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.